He begins with a truth most people never question. We don't live in full awareness. We live in systems, invisible ones, routines, emotions, reactions, patterns built long before choice existed. Every word we hear leaves a trace. Every image we watch installs something. Every voice, every headline, every rhythm writes a line of code inside the mind. The Matrix isn't technology. It's not a screen or a simulation. It's psychological architecture, invisible, elegant, and everywhere. From birth, the subconscious begins recording, not logically, mechanically. It captures repetition. It stores emotion. It turns experience into reflex. By the time awareness develops, most of the program is already running. And he realizes the real control isn't external, it's internal. He studies the pattern, how emotion decides what the mind keeps, how repetition reinforces it, how attention acts like currency. He understands whoever shapes input shapes response. That's how propaganda works. That's how culture works. That's how identity quietly forms. But the system isn't evil, it's neutral, waiting for instruction. He sees what most miss. Everyone is already programmed by habit, by fear, by noise. The difference between freedom and control is not escaping the matrix. It's writing the code yourself. He begins to reclaim authorship, to edit responses instead of reacting, to feed his mind consciously instead of letting the world install noise. The goal isn't domination, it's direction. Not control over others, but command over self. Because once he understands how the subconscious works, he no longer fights the matrix, he operates it. To change behavior, he doesn't start with action. He starts beneath it, with access. Because before any system can be rewritten, it must be reached. And logic can't reach the subconscious. Only state can. 1 relaxation states. The first key is calm. The subconscious doesn't open under pressure. It doesn't listen when the body is bracing to survive. When the nervous system is on high alert, the gate stays shut. But in stillness, in low breath, in slowness, access begins. He learns that calm is not luxury. It's entry. 2 repetition patterns. The second key is pattern. What the mind sees once, it forgets. What it sees 10 times, it remembers. What it sees daily becomes truth. Repetition is programming, not through force, through frequency. It doesn't matter if the message is right. It matters if it repeats. And that's how conditioning begins, not with meaning, but with volume. He starts choosing what gets repeated, because what's repeated becomes real. 3 emotional states. The third key is emotion. Emotion marks memory. It flags what matters. It carves experience into the nervous system. Trauma installs fast. Not because it's logical, but because it's emotional. He learns that whatever's paired with emotion gets embedded. That's why media uses fear. That's why marketing sells with desire. That's why manipulation feels good before it feels wrong. Emotion is the pen. The subconscious is the paper. He trains himself to feel without letting feelings decide the program. 4 bypass techniques. The fourth key is bypass. He learns to slip past the guardrails of conscious thought, not by force, but by rhythm, breath, focus, stillness. He uses silence. He repeats mantras. He walks without sound. And in that rhythm, thinking slows, filtering drops. In the space beyond noise, he gains access. 5 trance awareness. The 5th key is awareness of trance. Scrolling, driving, watching, nodding while not hearing. These are everyday trances, states where suggestion slides in unnoticed. He doesn't avoid trance. He recognizes it, names it, interrupts it, because once he sees the trance, it loses its grip. And with every layer of awareness, the matrix starts to loosen. Final realization. Access isn't control, it's clarity. Before any command is issued, the system must be visible. And before visibility, there must be stillness. He learns this. Subconscious power doesn't begin with manipulation, it begins with observation. The deeper he sees, the less he's controlled, and the more he can direct. Now that he has access, he begins to rewrite. Not through fantasy, through pattern. He no longer reacts. He designs. One, anchoring. He pairs calm with breath, focus with stillness, control with repetition. So when stress arrives, the anchor holds. Instead of spiraling, he drops into clarity. The trigger remains, but the response is his. 2, conditioning. Change doesn't need intensity. It needs consistency. One small win, repeated, logged, confirmed. Each act builds trust. Not in outcomes, but in behavior. He stops negotiating with failure. He installs proof, one action at a time. 3, suggestion. He deletes 2 words, I can't. He replaces them with, I'm training for this, or I'm learning it now. The brain believes what it hears, so he feeds it identity, not doubt. Words don't just describe reality, they direct it. 4, visualization. The subconscious can't tell the difference between reality and rehearsal. So he uses image, he builds scenes, he runs loops. The body begins to adjust before the result even happens. What he sees consistently, the system begins to expect and then create. 5, association. He rewires meaning. Pain no longer equals punishment. Discomfort equals growth. Discipline equals freedom. He attaches emotion, not to distraction, but to direction. That's how the loop flips. He stops chasing dopamine from escape and starts earning it from action. 6, precision language. He speaks less and cleaner. The subconscious doesn't follow complexity. It follows clarity. I always complete. I start, I finish. I follow the system. No drama, no stories, just code. He knows the difference between poetic language and programmatic language. One entertains, the other rewires. Final realization. This isn't hypnosis. It's hygiene. Mental hygiene. For the operating system he never knew he was running. He's not reprogramming to be perfect. He's reprogramming to be present, to respond on purpose, not autopilot, to become the author of the code he used to follow without question. With awareness in place, he begins reconstruction, not with motivation, with systems. Not through force, through feedback. One habit formation. He stops relying on willpower. It fluctuates. It drains. He replaces it with process. Fixed time, fixed triggers, clear rules. What doesn't need debate gets done. Habit isn't discipline, it's design. The system removes friction. The routine does the work. 2, belief change. He audits belief, not emotionally, mechanically. Where did this idea come from? Does it serve now? He keeps what works. He deletes what doesn't. Inherited beliefs don't get loyalty, only utility. This isn't about rebellion, it's about precision. He stops defending identity. He starts refining it. 3. Behavior remapping. Every trigger has a pattern. Every pattern has an exit. Instead of reacting, he inserts new response paths. Silence replaces anger. Breath replaces impulse. Pause replaces collapse. It's not about suppression, it's redirection. Clean, immediate, controlled. The same external cue, but now it leads somewhere else, somewhere chosen. 4. Skill installation. He stops treating skills like mystery. Every repetition is a line of code. Every focused loop builds neural structure. He breaks the skill down, trains it in parts, removes distraction. The subconscious doesn't care if he's talented. It only cares if he repeats. Mastery isn't born, it's installed. 5. Emotional healing. Now, he faces the one system most people avoid. Pain, not to relive it, to release it. He brings attention to where the emotion lives, not to suppress, to observe. He realizes what remains unfelt remains in control. Repression is not strength, it's delay, but observation dissolves the loop. The moment pain is witnessed, its grip weakens, its code collapses. Final realization. He understands now. Mastery doesn't require dominance. It requires understanding. Every loop, every trigger, every breakdown was a message. Once decoded, it becomes editable. He doesn't force behavior to change. He rebuilds the system it runs on, quietly, consciously, permanently. He understands one law. Power without ethics collapses. A sharp mind with no discipline becomes a weapon, usually against itself. So every method he learns, he applies inward, never outward. No manipulation, no coercion, no control over others, only control over self. He doesn't use these tools to deceive. He uses them to direct, not to override someone else's will, but to reclaim his own. Because programming, when misused, becomes control. But when aimed inward, it becomes clarity. Ethical programming is not soft. It's strict, demanding, silent. It means cutting distractions, breaking old stories, replacing reaction with conscious response. It means taking full responsibility for what lives in the mind and what enters it. He begins to filter what he reads, what he watches, what he repeats. Not to isolate himself, but to clean the system. Every input is either a weapon or a resource. He chooses carefully. He stops outsourcing meaning. He stops letting screens tell him how to feel. He stops letting headlines install fear or praise install addiction. He begins to listen inward, not to fantasy, but to pattern. He watches thought. He questions impulse. He traces triggers back to their root, not to fix everything, but to understand it. And with each day of quiet work, the mind sharpens, the code simplifies, the system stabilizes. This is sovereignty, not rebellion, not isolation, not delusion. Sovereignty means he owns his perception, he owns his attention, he owns his behavior, not as a performance, but as a process. He no longer needs external control because he's built internal discipline. And the more he maintains it, the less the noise outside can enter. This isn't self-help. It's self-governance. He doesn't chase happiness. He builds structure. He doesn't perform control. He becomes it, through stillness, through structure, through choice. Final understanding. The strongest mind isn't the one that can control others. It's the one that no longer needs to. He treats his mind like a system, and every system needs firewalls. He begins with an audit. What enters through screens, through conversation, through habit, every sound, every feed, every comment is an input -- a line of emotional code waiting for permission to run. He stops granting permission. He filters the sources. If it drains, it's cut. If it provokes without purpose, it's muted. If it builds anxiety disguised as information, it's gone. Silence becomes the new signal, because defense isn't anger. Defense is attention. He understands that attention is currency. And wherever it flows, energy follows, so he guards it. Not with walls, with awareness. Awareness cuts the wire before infection spreads. He doesn't need to fight influence. When it never enters, when overload returns, he steps back. He watches, he breathes, he resets. Silence clears corrupted data. Stillness resets the operating system. That's his defense protocol. Minimal input, maximum clarity. He no longer fears manipulation because he no longer absorbs it. The system remains clean, stable, quiet. He ends where it began, with choice. The matrix isn't broken. It's not a trap. It's a mirror. It runs exactly what you install. Nothing more, nothing less. Most people run code they didn't write, beliefs they didn't choose, habits they never questioned. But he rewrites, not all at once, not with drama, just one line at a time, through design, through discipline, through silence. Mastery isn't about escape, it's about authorship. He decides the inputs, he defines the meaning, he holds the root access. No rituals, no tricks, no superstition. Just systems, clarity, and control. The matrix doesn't need to be feared, it needs to be understood. Because once he understands it, he no longer lives inside it, he operates it. Quiet, intentional, free.